This video was made possible by Brilliant. Learn with Brilliant for 20% off by being one of the first 200 to sign up at brilliant.org/HAI. So let's say that you want to sneak into the US, or maybe out of the US, but let's also say that you don't want to break any laws since you're looking to become mayor and then senator and then president, and then turn the US into your own little fiefdom where hand dryers are banned, upside down toilet paper is illegal, and slow walkers are jailed, and since having a record is bad for politics, law abidance is a must. For that, here are a bunch of places where you can legally cross the border between Canada and the US with no passport, no customs, and no immigration. Starting at the eastern end of the US-Canada border, the first legal sneaking site is many miles north near Presque Isle, Maine, which as it turns out is neither an isle or very Presque to anything. Now, this golf club, except for its parking lot, is all located just over the border in Canada. This position was quite precisely picked as it was originally established during America's Prohibition era, and this way, American members could go to this clubhouse, which was in Canada, and legally get their sesh on. Nowadays, because of this, 18-year-olds can still get tipsy before tea time, but it also creates problems as the border is now more rigidly enforced. You see, the only road to the club is just over the border in the US, and there is not, of course, a border crossing checkpoint in their parking lot. Since there is no way out of the club except through America, Americans are therefore allowed to just park in the lot, walk over into Canada to play a round of golf, and then walk back into America. For Canadians, however, it's a little more complicated. The Canadian who lives here, for example, has to drive all the way down to the next border crossing and then back up to get to the course. In the summer, however, there's a temporary Canadian border crossing here, allowing people to pass back into Canada via the most direct route, although, since there's no corresponding American station, they still have to take the detour to get to the club. Moving on though, way up north there's the town of Escourt, Maine/Quebec. This town is pretty well bisected by the border, which leads to a lot of oddities. For example, there's this gas station in the US which is quite popular given the lower cost of top-quality American gasoline, lovingly freed from oppression by the American military. To legally get to this gas though, from the Canadian side, you're expected to drive down to here, the nearest American border crossing, go through customs and immigration, drive back through Canada to the gas station, fuel up, then drive back through Canada to the Canadian station and check back into Canada. Elsewhere in the town though, there are these houses, cleanly split in two by the border. This has some advantages. Parents can rank their kids and decide whether they get the Canadian or American bedroom. That way the good kid will get a low-cost, high-quality university education, and the bad kid will get drafted to fight in the great US executive branch NOAA Civil War of 2020. To evade complications though, the policy with these houses are that, since the only road to get to them is Canadian, they can live how they like to on their property, and then, if they were to go to a part of the US that was not their backyard, they would have to check in at the nearest US border station. Way west of there is the St. Regis Mohawk Reservation. Thanks to an 18th century treaty, there are no restrictions on crossing the border within it. For example, there's this town, which is split in two by the border, however, there are absolutely no border controls. In that case, the town is conveniently on a peninsula, however, the situation is even stranger a bit down the line at Cornwall Island. You see, the station to enter Canada used to be here, on the island, however, in 2009, the reservation's government put up a fight against the Canadian border agents' desire to be armed at their post like their American counterparts, and so it was moved to here, on the mainland, even though Canadian territory starts here. Therefore, coming from the US, you can drive onto this island, walk around, shop, and do whatever you want in Canada without having officially entered it immigration-wise. Legally though, what you're then supposed to do if you want to re-enter the US is drive north through the Canadian border station, turn back around, cross Cornwall Island again, and go through the US border station. Apparently, if you don't and they catch you, you'll get a hefty $5,000 fine, but this also means that to go to either the US or Canada, the residents of Cornwall Island have to go through a border checkpoint. Way down the line, in North Dakota and Manitoba, is the International Peace Garden, where crossing the border is not only tolerated, but encouraged. Crossing there is so easy, it's like a walk in the park. Built as a symbol of the peaceful relationship between the countries, this symmetrical garden is cleanly bisected by the border, and when strolling through, you can cross it as much as you want. Even further west is a similar story at the Peace Arch, which is located at the main border crossing for those driving between Seattle and Vancouver. This is also an international park, meaning anyone from either side is allowed to get out and cross the border as much as they want. This is most influential not actually at the arch itself, but just to its east where there's a large field and playground. For the Canadians living in this neighborhood, this is a popular dog and kid walking spot, and because of these unique regulations, they're able to turn their walk international without any immigration requirements as long as they go back to Canada once the deed is done. In conclusion, the rules at all these places is kind of like the rules with murder. You could physically murder someone, nothing stopping you, but it is still illegal. You could also physically cross the border and not go back in these places, but it's still illegal. In these places, they just happen to use the honor system. Not for murder, that is, but to border crossing. You see, what they probably did was figure out the probability of someone illegally crossing in these spots, the cost it would take to secure the border, and figured that cost wasn't worth it. Of course, to do that, they probably needed a solid understanding of probability. To learn that, they might have used Brilliant. In my opinion, Brilliant probability courses are probably some of the highest fun to learning ratio activities you can do. It really just seems like you're doing puzzle upon puzzle, but it turns out they actually sneakily taught you a thing along the way. This is kind of the point of Brilliant. You learn complex topics in a simple manner, and all their courses do a fantastic job of this. Best of all, you can get started learning for free at brilliant.org/HII, but if you are one of the first 200 to upgrade to a premium subscription at that link, you will also get 20% off.